Good morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time of day it is where you're at. Welcome to Collider Dailies. I'm John Aldrich, and joining me today is someone new. It's Mike Thomas, novice cinephile. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing really well, happy to be here. Excited to talk about some incredible movie news. We had quite a bit on the agenda. We had to cut some things out actually.
Yeah, well, when we were talking about today's episode, you had like a list, like a long one of like stuff. You're like, we could talk about all this. And I'm just like, all right, calm down. Let's do
I
like a
mean,
few. We aren't going to be here for 3 hours. But we
yeah,
are
that's
gonna,
how busy a Wednesday was, right?
I mean, yeah, there was a lot of news yesterday, which some days there's a lot, some days there isn't, but it just we had a good day yesterday. But today we have all kinds of news. We're going to talk about streamers doing streamer things. That's always a fun discussion to be had. We're going to talk about Henry Cavill having some comments about Highlander and Warhammer. We're also going to be talking about Deadpool 3 wrapping filming. But before we get into any of that, we do have a news story that just broke a little bit ago that we're going to talk about. We don't cover a lot of gaming news, but I feel like this was a big enough one that we would at least talk about it. It just came out that Microsoft has laid off 1,900 workers in their gaming division, with many of those layoffs coming from Activision Blizzard. Mike, how does this make you feel? What are your thoughts, comments, concerns?
First off, my heart goes out to all of those employees, especially on the Activision Blizzard side of like that. It's been like a year and a half, 2 years of them trying to get that acquisition just for you to lose your job a couple months later. That's a terrible feeling.
3 months after the acquisition went through, that happens.
That's insane to me. And I hate that this has become the norm for the industry, where it's like every other week it feels like some company is just laying off 500 employees or 200 employees, and like this one with that outstanding number of over 1,000. It's just,
yeah,
I don't know what's going on. And we know that video games cost a lot of money and they're just going up each generation, but have we really gotten to the point where it's just like imploding, where these companies can't keep up with all the employees that they have?
There is definitely something going on in the business space. I feel like in this case, like, it was expected that there were going to be layoffs after the acquisition went through. That's just the nature of it. Because they're, when you have that happen, when two companies come together like that, you're going to have a lot of redundancies that they're going to cut out. But 1,900 is an absurd amount of people to let go, especially all at once like that. And it seems like there's a lot of confusion still around if people have even been impacted by this or not. So we'll just have to pay attention, wait and see. As you said, heart goes out to all those workers who were affected. If you know anybody who was affected, keep an eye out for them, help them out with maybe finding some new opportunities down the line. Let's see if we can, do what we can to try to mitigate some of the financial impact that these people are going to have to face, because it is an awful situation to be in. Moving into our first story of the day, first proper story of the day, one that is hopefully not nearly as much of a bummer as what we just started off with. Deadpool 3 has officially wrapped filming, according to a post by Mr. Ryan Reynolds himself. They've finished all of their filming on Deadpool, so they are moving into the post-production and they are getting ready for that July release. It seems like I was thinking about this morning when we were going to be talking about this story. It seems like they don't have very long between finishing filming and the film debuting in July. It seems like they're really squishing that post-production in there. Does that make you nervous at all, Mike?
A little bit, because you also have to take into consideration that they didn't film very long last year because of the dual strike. So it's like they come back. I think they restarted production in like December and they finished filming this week. So yeah, post-productions, they don't have a lot of time. And I Hugh Jackman did like confirm that they're going to hit that July date, July 26th, I think it was. So fingers crossed. But we know how long these superhero movies take to make. Like, they take years, and it feels like they filmed this in total in like 6 months and only have like a couple more months to finish post on it. But I do trust Ryan Reynolds. Like, we know how much he loves Deadpool. So I don't think him, Kevin Feige, everybody else involved with this production are going to let this movie fail. But it is a little shocking how fast this has gone.
Yeah, I will say that, like, I'm with you. I trust Ryan Reynolds on that, but I would not be surprised if in a little while they're just like, hey, we're gonna have to push back the release date on this movie because we need
Oh
more
no.
time. I will say I hope that happens, because I would rather that be the outcome than them rushing all of the VFX or
Right.
rushing all of the post production, because that is a major part that they're gonna have to deal with. So hopefully things go with it. Do you have any major, like, speculation, or do you have any of your own personal theories about what we might expect to see in Deadpool 3? There's a lot of speculation around this movie, and we haven't gotten a chance to talk about it. So I'm curious what you expect to see and what you want to see.
It's interesting because when they announced that Hugh Jackman was coming back for the role of Wolverine, like a lot of people were excited. I was not, because of how we ended that character, left him in Logan. Felt like that was such a proper send off, and he delivered arguably his best performance as Wolverine in that movie. So to have him come back, you have to make this worth it, and that's why I agree with you. Like, if they need to delay this movie, even if it's a multiversal, different version of Wolverine, like variant situation, they need to make this movie worth it. And so I'm pretty sure it's the only Marvel Studios film coming out this year. Everything else got delayed. Um,
For some reason,
yes,
I'm
and
thinking that there's something in the fall, but you're probably right.
yeah, I know they still have like the Disney Plus stuff, but this is
Yeah.
pretty much the only theatrical release for Marvel. So I do want them to take their time with it. As far as theories, though, we've got a ton of set photos. It seems like it's just kind of like the Wolverine Deadpool buddy cop movie everybody wants. Like, I feel like this is going to be something multiversal. It's going to have to tie into that multiverse saga that we're kind of
Yeah.
closing out soon with the next Avengers movie. So, what I would hope to see is Deadpool kills the Marvel universe, right? Of like him going through the Foxverse, getting to the MCU in some wacky, crazy adventure. I think that'd be the most fun. And it would probably be a good send off for Wolverine, in the sense that he's the character we care the most about. So if he is stuck in the Foxverse, or if he comes with Deadpool to the MCU, either way, I think can be a fun, crazy kind of finish to that X-Men franchise that's been running for over 20 years now.
Yeah. And what do you think about the rumors that we're going to be getting people from, like, Deadpool, or not Deadpool, Daredevil, and, like, all of these other Fox properties? Like, do you think
Yeah, I
that's
think
going to be like a multiversal hopping thing, or are they going to confirm that all those movies were in the Foxverse?
I mean, they might just confirm that it was all in the Fox first, because let's be honest, the Fox universe is muddled and confusing and weird. And like First Class was unrelated, but then it became a prequel, like through retcons, and like
They might
none
as
of
well just
that.
shove everything in there just willy
Right.
nilly.
And knowing Deadpool's like fourth wall breaks, he can address some of that in like a clever, funny way. But you know, they could go the Doctor Strange route too, of like they're going through different timelines, different multiverses. So they go through the Fantastic Four or Fant Four Stick or Daredevil, and then eventually make it to 616, the MCU. That could be kind of cool. I just hope it's not a bunch of cameos, you know,
Yeah,
pointless
it
cameos.
bothers. I'm gonna throw it unrelated. It bothers me so much that they are determined to say that the MCU is 616.
Yeah.
That bothers me so much. I'm right there with Iman Vellani being like, no, it is 1999999, because 616 is the comic universe. You can't just, like, say that they're the same but different. Sorry, no.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, and it feels pointless because like it's just gonna make us annoyed, like the people who actually do know and care, and then the people who don't know what the 616 universe is are just gonna be like, okay, random number. You could just
Yeah,
named it Earth
it's
One or
just the
something.
same as in Into the Spider-Verse, them saying that that version of Miles comes from 1610, and I'm like, no, that would be the comic book Ultimate Miles. This
Yeah,
matters, guys.
it
This
does.
does
It
matter
really
to
does.
colossal nerds like me, but it does matter. Didn't they basically confirm the Foxverse in the Marvels post-credit scene? That was from All the Game, All in the Game in chat. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, kind of. We know that there is an X-Men verse, but outside of the appearance of Kelsey Grammer as the Beast, they didn't really necessarily give us anything concrete that it is specifically the Fox verse. It could be
He
something very, very similar.
He also doesn't look like Kelsey Grammer's Beast the last time we saw him in the Foxverse either. So
yeah, he does look. He's a little bit CGI-y. I will say I was very happy for Kelsey Grammer to be back in that role. I feel like he was probably one of the better parts of Last Stand. So good to have him back. But yeah, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see when it comes to Deadpool 3, figure out exactly what is going to be going on with that. I will say that this is one of those films that I want to try to not, which I'm going to say this, and you're going to realize it's virtually impossible given what we do for a living. I want to try to go into this movie with as few spoilers or just as few ideas of what the heck the movie's about at all as possible.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be a while. That's not going to happen. I'm going to be hit with all the spoilers like I always am.
It kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about this being the only MCU theatrical release of 2024. You're not going to avoid this because they're going to put all their marketing power behind this movie. You're going to see billboards, you're going to see YouTube ads, you're going to see trailers in the theater. So like you're not going to avoid Deadpool 3, unfortunately.
I just so I do envy people who are able to go into a movie completely blind, but you know, it's one of the downsides of doing what we do. There's a whole bunch of people right now who are probably very, very annoyed that I'm complaining about what we do for a living. Like, oh no, I have to have things spoiled for me. Anyways, let's move on to our second story of the day, which is all about Henry Cavill and 2 upcoming projects of his. So Henry Cavill recently sat down with Steve Weintraub here in Collider during a junket for Argyle. And he was sitting there and Steve asked him all about Highlander and Warhammer. Henry Cavill basically just confirmed, hey, yeah, they're both happening. They're about to go into sword training for Highlander. And he didn't give us much when it comes to Warhammer, but he did say some exciting things are coming on the horizon. Mike, how do you feel about either one of these projects? Is there one that you are more excited about, or is there or are you one of these people who doesn't know much about like Warhammer, for instance?
Yeah, I don't know a ton about Warhammer. I think that's why it's the most interesting one for me. Especially, listening and reading Cavill's quotes from his conversation with Steve. He seems very passionate about it. And one thing, like, I love Henry Cavill as an actor. I think he's phenomenal. I think when he's in a project that he's passionate about. And luckily, it seems like he's been blessed to do that a lot with Superman, with The Witcher, even though he's since exited both of those roles. But him saying that he's always wanted to do Warhammer, I think, and him having that creative voice, like being able to like be producer on that movie, I think will lead to a really inspired take on the source material, because it's coming from a place of love, not just corporate greed. I hate to say it, like a lot of movies. So I'm excited for that. But then his Highlander comments are very exciting too, of like him sword training and doing all that stuff. I'm really interested to see where they go, because he's great in those physical roles, but I love when he can kind of flex those acting muscles a little bit more. And
yeah,
in roles like The Witcher, he didn't get a ton of that. So I'm hoping we kind of...
He basically just scowled and said the F word. That was like all that he did in that entire show. Loved it, but that was his acting on The Witcher. I will say I'm excited for Highlander because I grew up with the original, which I know is a weird thing to say because it's literally a movie about people getting their heads cut off. And so someone growing up with Highlander is a little sus, but I'm looking forward to it. It is one of those weird franchises that I always thought it was bizarre that we haven't seen more from, because we got a couple of movies and we got like a TV show in the 90s, but then it's been basically dead ever since. So it's always weirded me out that we haven't gotten it. And Warhammer, I would say about a year ago, I started very casually learning about the lore, and going into it a little bit. It is a very, how do I put this? It is a very severe universe, very dark, very depressing, very, very death metal, which it's a lot it's a lot different
Yeah.
from the fantasy that I'm usually used to, but I'm definitely here for it. Geekly Goods in chat is asking, how would you guys feel about Cavill as Bond? I don't hate the idea of it. I feel like Argyle kind of gives us a glimpse of a little bit of what he might sort of be like in that like super spy role, and he's had a couple of roles also where he's been sort of super spy-y.
The Man from Uncle too.
He I think he would definitely fit it. I don't know if the studio would want Cavill. I think would be the bigger question, but I don't know. The whole Bond discussion, there's so many people who could be Bond, but it's hard right now, and I think we're a little ways out before we really have to worry about it too much. Because I don't see a lot of momentum on the Bond front. But
I think he'd do fine. Like I wouldn't hate it. I don't know if he'd be my first choice. Plus he's kind of busy because he's got Chad Stahelski working with him on Highlander. That might be like the big action franchise for the next decade after that. We don't know.
Yeah. So I don't know. I wouldn't hate it. He's not he's a name that's been thrown in there a lot. So definitely somebody to maybe keep an eye on. But as I said, I think they're a ways out from that. Okay, moving on to our final topic for this episode. Streamers being streamers, doing streamery things. So there's two situations involving streaming platforms doing things that people are not altogether kosher with. The first thing, which is the biggest little bit of news here today. So earlier today, like a couple hours ago, right? Yeah, we got our first trailer for Roadhouse, the Amazon Prime film, the remake or reboot or whatever. I don't know if it's a remake or if it's in continuity with the original Roadhouse. I don't know, but either way, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, directed by Doug Liman. It's going to be on Prime Video. Here's the rub, though. When that movie entered production and during the contracting phase, Doug Liman was actually told this is going to be a theatrical release produced by MGM. It's going to be in theaters, and so he was like, "All right, I'm ready for this to be a movie that you can go to the cinema and see." But then, Amazon and MGM did their whole like merging thing that they tend to do, because corporations, and then after the movie is finished, they just told Lyman, they're like, no, this isn't going to theaters. It's going to be a streaming only movie. So now Lyman is actually saying that he's going to be boycotting the film South by Southwest premiere. Mike, what are your thoughts on this? Where do you stand on this? Do you think that Doug Lyman's overreacting, or do you think he's justified in his anger and upsetness?
He's justified. I mean, one, the trailer just came out, right? And like it looks good. It looks really fun. And like, I think this could have been a solid win for MGM and, Amazon Studios. I don't think it was going to set the world on fire, but like Nate in the comments is saying, if the Beekeeper can make money, there's no reason why Roadhouse couldn't. So I think that's totally fair. And he has the right to be upset because they did lie to him. They said it'd be a theatrical release, and they just decided we're going to put it on Prime Video. And as much as I love Prime Video, as much as this movie looks great, he has the right to like voice that frustration and that concern. It's completely justified. And I wish like I'm glad you titled this segment like streamers at it again, and streamers being streamers, because this has been becoming an ongoing issue where movies are getting canceled, or they were supposed to be theatrical, then they go to streaming. Like, look at what happened with Pixar. Like, that effectively hurt their brand by putting all those movies on Disney Plus. It's hard to get people to start going back to watch these animated kids films again. And so I get Lyman going out of his way to make sure he had that understanding of it being a theatrical release. Because if they just told him straight up it was streaming, he signed on for that. But since he didn't, he has every right to be upset and want to boycott this movie.
Well, and there's also something that we don't know if this is necessarily the case, but in a lot of contract negotiations these days, a lot of times, directors and actors and people who are, getting these big contracts to work on films, they're getting like smaller payouts for the project, but getting promised, theatrical royalties, a cut of the box office. We don't know if that was necessarily the case with Liman, but that is something that a lot of people have brought up as a problem with a movie that was supposed to be theatrical suddenly being kicked over to streaming only, or even films that are being theatrically released but then also released on streaming. That's cutting into the money that these people are promised for the film.
That literally happened to Scarlett Johansson with Black Widow, right?
Yeah, that's happened with quite a few people. It happened with Scarlett Johansson on Black Widow. Gal Gadot brought it up with Wonder Woman 1984. It's a problem that, it might seem like, a first world problem, like, oh, rich people problems, but this is people's livelihood that this decision is cutting into, that they're not having any say on. So I don't know, man. It's a tough situation, but that's not the only thing that streaming platforms have been doing that is not kosher with us. Netflix just canned a film that was, for all intents and purposes, pretty much done. And that film was The Mothership, starring Halle Berry. It was a sci-fi film that had finished production and was in the post-production stage. Apparently there were some delays during post-production, and apparently that was bad enough that the film is being written off as a total loss on their taxes. And they're pulling a Warner Brothers on it. They're pulling a Scoob. They're pulling a Batgirl. They're pulling up insert any number of other films that this has happened to.
I hate that there's that many that you could rattle off like that. That's the problem. It is
a serious problem, and it's becoming something that we are like. Here's the thing: this has happened in the past. This isn't a new thing that studios do, but we are far more aware of it than we used to be. What are your thoughts and feelings on this? Did you know anything about The Mothership before it was canceled? Were you looking forward to it? Was it something that you were aware of at all?
In passing, because like I follow Halle Berry on social media, and she posts about it because that's the era we live in. We know about movies right before they go into production, as scripts are being written, and like it's more of a common thing for us to know about these details before we ever see a trailer, unlike it was 20 years ago, even 10 years ago at this point. The thing to me is the production delays. And we don't know the full details about that, but again, my big concern, this sucks for everybody who worked on this movie, but also it's like, are they using the strikes as an excuse? Because that did delay a lot of things. So is production delays just something as simple as that from last year? I mean, I'm a little bit too much, but
with this one in particular, I would be curious if the strikes would even be something that they could justify, because it sounds like the film had been in post-production for a while. So, things that were in post-production weren't really delayed by the strike too much. They were a little bit, because the writers do have something, they do have a presence during the editing process sometimes.
Some reshoots too sometimes.
Yeah, that can sometimes affect things. So it's possible that could have been the case, but it's really hard to say for sure. It would not surprise me at all, but it's just another example of corporations, of these big streaming platforms, kind of just throwing things into the wind and just, upsetting people. It happens a lot.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about, Lyman's previous concerns, right? Of like, we don't know what the contracts look like, and like if these people are getting the amount of money they should once it gets canned and it's never released, and the idea that these are just tax write-offs, because like at first it was a big Warner Brothers issue, and now Netflix, they've probably done it before, but this is another prominent one in recent memory, and so it feels like it's becoming a trend, because like you said at the top of this segment, it's like the fourth time this has happened in like the last 18 months, and it's definitely becoming a problem for the industry.
Yeah, as Christian Eulenberg said in the chat, writing off movies is like burning down your house for the insurance money. That's a little bit of a severe metaphor, but I get it, and it's not totally wrong. Yeah, it's such a late stage capitalist thing to be having, where it's like, where you can just do that. You just make a movie and then just write it off for tax reasons and get away with it. I don't know. It sucks, and it's just another example of this sort of thing happening. You know, you've got these days. It seems like even if a movie does make it to one of the streaming platforms, it gets finished, it gets released. It still might not be long for this world because so many streamers are just deleting content from their platform so they don't have to pay residuals to writers and actors and directors and all sorts of folks.
That's the concerning part, because we had a movie that was supposed to be theatrical go to streaming. Then we had a streaming movie that got canned. But like you just said, we have movies and shows that are just deleted from the platform. They don't get Blu-ray releases, they don't get DVD releases, and they're just gone into thin air. And this is a scary future because there's no signs of stopping it so far.
This is why I'm a big proponent of digital preservation, usually in the game space, as you can see from my collection behind me. But films are definitely something that we need to be, films and TV shows and things of that nature is something that we do need to start thinking about. And as much as I'm not one to encourage yo ho ho, a pirate's life for me, maybe we do need to be thinking about people archiving basically everything that gets released just for the day when the day comes when, you know, something just gets deleted because the corporation didn't want to pay people for it anymore. So many fantastic works and so many fantastic pieces of media that are just completely inaccessible nowadays, and it's sad. Sad for everyone involved and sad for those of us who want to be able to watch this sort of content. And that is all that we have for today's show. Let us know, what do you think about streamers deleting content, changing the release plans for content, just doing the things that streamers want to do, or Netflix, for instance, basically phasing out their basic plan, which is something that we didn't even touch upon because they want people to be going to their ad-supported tier. All sorts of just fun stuff going on. Let us know your thoughts. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave us a comment. If you're anywhere else, you can also just, get in touch with us on social media. You can see our handles there on screen. I'm at Benderwaffles, BenderWaffles, and Mike here is at Novice Cinephile. Get over there, let us know your thoughts, get in on the conversation, and have a great time with it. Mike, is there anything that you are doing exciting on Collider that you want to talk about? Any articles or anything that you got coming down the pipeline?
Yeah, Collider, great place. If you're watching us, I assume you enjoy our work. Things I can't talk about yet, embargoed stuff, but
that's always
fun. It's not a lot I can say, but stay tuned there. We got some Avatar: The Last Airbender, some Demon Slayer stuff. Those shows premiere and return in early February, or mid-February. So you should prepare for some awesome articles over there from me and the resource team.
Definitely check out all that sort of stuff. In fact, there's a lot of fantastic stuff coming over on Collider.com. We've got interviews from Argyle coming down the pipeline. We're currently in the process of editing and releasing all of our Sundance interviews, so you can go over there and check those out. We've got a whole bunch of stuff coming, Halo Season 2, all kinds of just fun stuff coming. So be sure to keep an eye out over there for all of that. Jump in there, watch our videos, and of course, catch more Collider Dailies every day here at 10 a.m. Tomorrow, it is going to be, I believe, myself and Maggie. I think I will need to check the schedule and find out. Might possibly be me and Steve. We will see which one of the two it winds up being. Either way, you'll have gotten an entire week of me, which I hope that you're excited about that.
Awesome.
And I hope that you enjoyed having Mike on the show. Mike, I'm so glad that you were able to step in and do this episode with me. We will definitely have to have you on again here soon, if at all possible.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's good, being called off the bench, coming in to do a pinch hit once in a while.
We'll get you on more. For the rest of you, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. We will see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat place. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.